my question is leading to this is that we are basically becoming an infertile society. Like I don't know if it's gone up since I've last checked, but sperm counts are like at a 50% reduction. It may be way more than that, and so people are having a harder and harder time actually conceiving children, and so that's kind of what I want to drive forward with you is like, why is that?
Well, there's so many different reasons, and we go over these reasons, but one a good example is, for instance, things that what I call the compounded effect, and this is where there's a massive deception going on in the mainstream media, because they are complicit in deceiving the public that we've done the science, you can trust us. And there's nothing that could be further from the truth, actually. If you look at the way they conduct these experiments on, say, thimerosal or vaccines or GMOs or a single chemical or a single heavy metal or all kinds of things. I mean, just if you just take the ingredient perfume, it could be anything, any one of 200 or many or combination of 200 very extremely carcinogenic, toxic chemicals in perfume. So I don't know about you, but I get really slimed out when sometimes my aunts hug me, or somebody hugs me at a meeting and they have this synthetic horrible perfume and you can't get it off your clothes. It makes my eyes itch, and I don't know how people wear that all the time. They're hormonal disruptors. That's one example, right? Now, when we talk about getting pregnant and what's blocking getting pregnant and what's suppressing these things, we know clearly today that there are certain things that suppress our genes. There's no doubt about it, that if you have heavy metals like mercury or lead or aluminum, and how these combine, you're certain to have some kind of suppression of your child's genes. So much of the birth defects are subtle in nature. They're not overt. They're not diagnosable. But they're there. And so what the Brighton method is about, and Brighton Baby is about, is looking at anything and everything that's a blind spot. So going back to our original discussion, so if you look at the compounded effect, if you take any kind of a substance and say you do a study on it, and they use lab rats. By the way, lab rats are not good analogies to humans because they have anywhere from 100, 200 times more adaptive enzymes that protect them from infection and microbes and filth, because they live in and evolved in filth. But we don't have that, so it's not even a fair analogy. The other factoid is that when they do a study on one adjuvant, one additive that they put, say, in the vaccine, that particular adjuvant could be anything. It could be aluminum. It could be loaded like thimerosal with mercury. It could be formaldehyde. And they said, well, we've done the studies on it, and it seems like it's safe. Well, it turns out if you look at the actual study that was done in 1928 by Eli Lilly on 16 people, I think it was, this is what the pharmaceutical companies point to. They said, well, it's FDA approved. And in those days, I think it was prior to FDA, actually, but they had some kind of safety standard that they fulfilled, and they've been coasting off of that little wave for a long time. Now, if we really look at it, though, we say, well, wait a second, what was that study about? Okay, well, that study was, I think, 16 people, and they were already dying of spinal meningitis, and then they injected them with thimerosal, and then they all died. And they said that proves it's safe, because they all died. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't call that a safety study. And that doesn't make me feel safe. But I hear these parents arguing and defending vaccines, and it just shocks me, because I go to the school and I talk to the PTA. I have 4 kids. I've raised 4 children. Mm-hmm. And they've heard on Fox News or CNN that these experts from universities say how safe it is and so forth. But they never know how to ask the critical questions, So I tell parents, I say, look, I'm not against vaccines. There's the time to vaccinate. Well, like for instance, say you're in some foreign country or you're here in the United States and there's a cholera outbreak in the next town and a lot of people died already. That's a time to vaccinate.
That's
Definitely.
An appropriate usage.
Yeah, there's a high chance you could get it. It's a very dangerous disease, and it's probably a wise idea. However, in today's world, we're vaccinating. They recommend 36 or 38, depending which state you're in, vaccines. That's oftentimes insane. By the time a child's 1 year old. Now, think about that. We're experimenting this massive human experiment with very little scientific validity for this, when they're vaccinating little infants for things there's a 1 in 10 million chance, or 1 in 1 million, or 1 in 2 billion chance they'll die, or let alone or even get this kind of a disease. Some of these things are completely obsolete. They don't even exist, like scarlet fever. So you have to ask yourself: have you heard anybody in the last few years die of diphtheria or?
I never even heard of that.